Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and welcome to Rare Variants, the series in which I talk about a lot of our favorite video game consoles, but specifically focusing on the oddball versions of them that came out in maybe just one country, or had some sort of special edition, or what have you. Those consoles have stories too, and I want to talk about them. So before we do that though, if you guys could do me a favor, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, as well as check out all the social media stuff in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, etc. I've also got my travel channel, as well as Spreadshirt, all that sort of stuff. I appreciate the support in those various places. Thank you so much, and now let's get started. So, yes, today we're going to be giving a little love to the original PlayStation. Very hard system to not recognize. It is one of the most successful systems ever produced. Sony's original little dream machine, as it were. Despite its massive success, though, Sony actually, funny enough, didn't do that many variations of it, at least not externally. We'll talk about that in a second. But basically, there was the original gray box, as I'm sure most of us are familiar with, and then later they would go on to make the PS1 Slim, which also had a version that had a screen, but that was detachable. So essentially, they just kind of made the two models. It is kind of bizarre how few variations of the original PlayStation there are. They never even did like the Nintendo 64 Funtastic line with a whole bunch of different colors or anything. They did do, and to be in all fairness, there were a few special editions, but most of them were essentially unattainable. Things that were like one-offs that were meant for individual developers as like here's a one-of-one gold version or stuff like that. There are a few other ones, like there's the 10 million units sold version. I know that Sony did that not that long ago with the PlayStation 4, but they did that with the original PlayStation. How many of those they produced, I'm not sure. And then there's odd things like the Net Eurozzi machine, which was essentially a development kit that was sold to the public, sort of. That's another weird one. That is not what this machine is, by the way. That's a completely different story, but we're not going into. But the thing is, despite that few different variations, they actually did a ton of variations under the hood, which will actually come back to change it. So that's why if you ever have a stack of like PS1s, which is not impossible because they're such a common machine, you'll notice that things like on the back, like some have composite ports and some don't, and the revisions they made under the hood, massive, but externally they just didn't make that many different versions. So what do we have here? What are we talking about today? This is the PlayStation Debugging Station. Now, what is the purpose of a debugging station? Now, it is worth noting, this is not something Sony ever actually sold to the public. You weren't really ever meant to have this. So, technically, it's not something that was ever released that could be considered a special edition, but hey, we've got access to it, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about it all the same. At first glance, it just looks like a limited edition PlayStation because it's basically exactly the same design, but it's green. Right? That's really cool. But the purpose of a debugging station is essentially, it's in the name. It's for debugging. So the idea was if you were a developer, maybe you were actually at Sony yourself, or if you were at some company like EA or IDOS or whoever back in the day, you would be sitting there and you're like working on your game, and you go, okay, all right, I have the latest build of it, now I need to test it. Well, you're not going to do that on emulation. That doesn't make any sense. You should be trying to run it on the original hardware. Duh. So you're going to try and run it. Now, the problem is, obviously, for piracy reasons, the stock models are not designed to be able to just take your burn disk to try out your prototype of your game and just start running it. That's the whole point of anti-piracy measures. That's why they built debugging stations. These things are not only region-free consoles right out of the box, they also are designed to be able to play burn games, essentially unsigned code, so the developers could go ahead and be like, okay, here's the latest build of my game, let me pop it in, let's take a look. Okay, that's a bug. Okay, she's like yellow when she's supposed to be white, or whatever, like the character models are wrong. They just run all that and they test it, make notes. That's the whole point of this machine, a debugging station. Now, Sony actually made a couple different versions of this, believe it or not. The original ones were actually blue. And as I understand it, now I don't have access to one of the blue ones, but as I understand it, that was the earlier model they were using for the first couple of years, but as Sony kept making additional revisions under the hood in the PlayStation, they had to make certain changes in the debugging station as well. It is my understanding that this model, the green one, is actually the better of the two in the sense that it's more reliable and capable of running more stuff, but I don't have the two directly to compare to actually verify that. That's just kind of what I read online, but I found that kind of interesting. So as you see here, I've got 3 games all set up. This is Twisted Metal 2, the North American version. It absolutely will play that, no problem. I tried it. That over there is Gunner's Heaven, which is a really cool Japanese exclusive. If you're a Sega guy like I am, this is actually basically the sequel to Gunstar Heroes on the Sega Genesis. It's just far well less known. There was actually another Gunstar Heroes on the Game Boy Advance years later, but this one's kind of the one in between. I don't know if it's canonically connected, but it's essentially, you might want to call it a spiritual successor. I'm not really sure about the actual continuity, but it is essentially the sequel to that. It's also just a very good game. And the last one over there is a game called Chaos Break, which is a European release, which was essentially a really cool Resident Evil clone. Now, to be fair to Chaos Break, it also came out in Japan, but that's the European version. This machine, standard, out of the box, will play all 3 of those, no problems whatsoever. Which I think is really cool, and we will show it to you in a moment here. But before we do that, I do want to give you a little history on this particular console. Now you might be like, wow, you have a debugging station? That's really cool. You want to sell it? It ain't mine. Actually, where this came from, this was loaned to me very temporarily from a guy in my Discord whose name is Sunshine. You can go into my Discord, join it. It's a really fun place. We talk, there's a lot, you want to talk obscure consoles and stuff, we talk about it all the time because a lot of us combined like have everything. We got a guy in there who has the VCD Sega Genesis. Yeah, even I don't have that. Anyway, so in that environment, he was like, oh yeah, no, I have this. And he found it. It's even more bizarre. This is a PAL version. Like, this is the European one. This isn't even a North American edition. Now, why does that matter? Not extensively, in the sense that it's a region-free system. It did use a 240-volt power supply, and it outputs 50 hertz. Being a smart guy that he is, he actually just kind of took the power supply out of a standard PS1 and put it in the debugging station so that at least the power supplies will totally work here. So the only issue with it is it outputs 50 hertz in North America, but honestly with modern day HDMI toys, I'm just using some junk cables. I got the pound cable set up here and everything. It's just for display purposes, but to its credit, it actually solves that problem, so it will display normally. So this is a PAL unit that Sunshine found locally in some store in West Virginia. Yep, the weird things you can find on this planet. But yeah, so he found it there, bought it, and he loaned it to me, and here we go. So yeah, it's a really cool unit, I think. I don't know how it got out from mainland Europe to West Virginia and then ended up in his possession, but hey, that's really cool. So what we're going to do with it, I thought I'd show it to you in action very briefly, and I'll show it to you for its original intended purpose. Now again, I remind you, the point of it was to take prototype unfinished games, run them on the system, and take a look at them. So with that logic in mind, let me fire up all our powers here with this little device, and let the monitor, I was going to say the TV, let that boot up there. Fire up the PlayStation, and then we will go here. Let's see. Alright, so you see that initial Sony screen that I'm sure you guys are very familiar with. Now here's one change you will actually see, is that after it goes from this screen, it goes to this one. You'll notice at the bottom it actually misses any sort of tag. There's an additional subtitle there about Sony Computer Entertainment and so on and so forth. It's Sony Computer Entertainment America or Europe or Japan. That tag is just completely gone, which is standard on the debugging stations. I'm not entirely certain why, but it's probably because it's a region-free system. And it goes past that, and you're going to see a little familiar. Oh, this game contains gore. Capcom, what is this? Oh, I don't know. Something's firing up there in my... oh, look at that. Biohazard 2, sample version. Now you can see the 2022, this is an updated build. What this is actually Resident Evil 1.5. For people who don't know the original story, Resident Evil 2, when it was originally in development, it got to a certain point where Capcom said, this isn't the game we want to make, and they scrapped the whole thing and they rebuilt it from the ground up, and that's how we got Resident Evil 2. The game they scrapped, this, lovingly referred to as Resident Evil 1.5, and you can play as Leon, but there's also this extra character called Elsa Walker, and so you can see her playing. This is what this machine was intended for. You're seeing this run just straight out. This is just a CDR of the game that you're just seeing just run right off of the system. No modification required. That's, again, what its purpose was. And then, if you were original developer back in the day, you would have been running a build similar to this. Now, you might have noticed that it said 2022, because I did straight up say it. That's because fans have had access to different builds of this game. They're trying to compile the most functional version, which is interesting all in its own right. But the point is, this machine will run it. So, yeah, it's... I've tried playing this before, by the way. It's unstable, to say the least. but the point is you can actually do it, and I thought it was kind of cool. Now, finding a debugging station, I'm not going to say it's particularly easy. Like I said, Sunshine just kind of stumbled on one. They do occasionally pop up on eBay from time to time, and they seem to sell between like $300, $500, $600 USD. And that's really down to like how much you actually care about owning something like that. I think it would be a neat thing to have. I don't think I'd really go out of my way to do it, because aside from the knowledge of what the machine is, in practical terms, it really is just a region-free system, which can be achieved with a mod chip, which we wouldn't even bother with anymore, because a lot of people would put things like SD loaders and you could run all the content anyway. So yeah, although I still think it's quite neat. Now, interestingly, this machine, even though Sunshine repaired it, he did work on the laser and all that, this machine suffers from the exact same hardware issues as the PlayStation does, where it's common where you have to turn it on its side for it to be able to read a disc. This actually suffers from that exact same problem. Now, again, he repaired his, but otherwise it should have had that issue. So, yeah, that's, I think, just kind of interesting that even in amongst their internal equipment, Sony never got that one right. But I still think that's funny. Well, yeah, there you go. I mean, I'm trying to show you more of the game, but it's just doing the intro opening cutscene, and it's not letting me skip past any of this. So, yeah, there's only so much I can do, unfortunately. Let's see, maybe we can hold out here. Come on. I saw it. Come on, you can do it. Let's play a little bit of the game from this odd angle. Oh, wait. Okay. No, well, we still have cutscenes. Yeah, I'm not doing that. That's cutscene. But then you get a sense, like, it starts off in this, like, police station, of course. Zombies trying to get in, and you're playing as her, and she's getting instructions on where to go and all that sort of stuff. And, yeah. I feel bad for the voice cast who recorded for this game, because the game never came out. Alright, now I can actually do something, I think. Oh, there we go. No, I'm trying. No, maybe not. Oh, wait, here we go. Yeah, it's really hard to see what I'm doing, but, I mean, you get it. Yeah, the point is, this is technically playable, and if you want to play this yourself, you can find it online, let's put it that way. But, yeah, it's... yeah, to say the least, not great. I mean, that's, again, makes sense. It's incomplete. As a Resident Evil fan, I would obviously love to really get into it, but it's kind of hard to. So, there you go. Like I said, totally region-free system. A lot of fun. If you ever want to check it out, again, you might be able to get one online, but in practical terms, it's really kind of just unnecessary. Just a very neat thing to be able to see and use and talk about, and I wanted to share it with you guys, because that's the whole point of Rare Variants. So, huge shout-out to Sunshine for loaning it to me so that we could do this video. You give him a thank you in the comments if you guys don't mind, and I will thank you. Thank you very much for watching. If you guys could do me a favor, as always, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't done that before, and then check out all the social media stuff in the description. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, the Spreadshirt, as well as my travel channel. I appreciate the support on all those various platforms. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.